Okay, so today we're here to talk about the service maintenance tender project for 2016 to 17. My name's Daniel Menz and I'm the Senior Purchasing Advisor from South East Queensland in our Cannon Hill office. Also have a number of representatives with me today. I have Wayne Briley, our Senior Purchasing Advisor from South Coast District. Also have Nicola Powell, one of our category managers. We also have Sam Zammit, who's an operations manager from service maintenance team. We have Rob Hoare, who's a district manager out here at South Coast. And we also have our workplace health and safety representative as well. Okay, so why are we here today? Well, the crux of it is Building and Asset Services is seeking to establish a number of contracts with contractors in the marketplace, and you're here to hear about those opportunities. First and foremost being the service maintenance tender project, but we're also going to be covering a number of other activities that we're going to market for. We're also here to demonstrate our commitment to continuous improvement in the way that we go to tender. So as part of that, if anyone was involved in the project that we went to market for hard and soft facilities management last year, we've made a number of improvements in the workbooks, also in the conditions, and revised our specifications to make it easier for you in the marketplace to put together a tender submission. We're also going to be providing an opportunity for a question and answer forum at the end, so if you do have any questions about this particular package, please feel free to raise them at the end. So our key drivers in building and asset services, first and foremost, is to support regional development. So that is essentially establishing contracts based on geographical locations. We're also focused on supporting small to medium enterprises. We're looking to reduce red tape, so as I mentioned, in terms of the way that we're continuously improving. We're reducing the length of a lot of our tender activities to make it easy for you in the marketplace to put forward a submission. And we're also looking to provide ultimately better services for Queenslanders as part of this activity, and ultimately achieve value for money outcomes both for our client agencies and ultimately for the Queensland public, as they're who we're here to serve. So we've got quite a lengthy agenda today. So we're going to cover off who is Building and Asset Services, what are our core services, also the industry opportunities that we have in 2016 to 17. We're also going to specifically look at service maintenance, both in a statewide and South East Queensland context. We'll be covering off a number of innovations that we've put in the process, both for the way that we operate our business and also for our client agencies. We're also going to be looking at the objectives of the invitation offer and also tendering timeframes. We're also then going to do a quick run through of what the workbooks are going to look like. So they're in an Excel format. There's also going to be a number of how-to information packs provided after this session, and also when the tender does go live as well, to simplify the process. And then we'll be providing additional information and resources on how to register with Building and Asset Services, the Q Tenders website where we will public advertise tenders, and also the BASI tender system where we will be putting this particular package. We're also going to undertake a workplace health and safety presentation at the end, as this is going to cover what our expectations are of the market, because we want to be upfront with the market as to, if you were successful as part of this tendering opportunity, what we would be looking for. And then we'll have our questions and answers at the end. Okay, so who is Building and Asset Services? Well, we're a division of the Department of Housing and Public Works, and we're the amalgamation of two former agencies, QBuild and Project Services, and we commenced operations on 1st of July 2013. And so BAS is essentially a service delivery arm for a number of government agencies and statutory bodies in the building construction maintenance space. We also operate across 6 regional areas, being South East Queensland, South West Queensland, Wide Bay Burnett, Central Queensland, North Queensland and Far North Queensland. And the really interesting aspect here for you in the marketplace is that about 2 to 3 years ago we were outsourcing 70% of our work, and now we're outsourcing upwards of 90%. And our mandate is essentially to continue outsourcing wherever possible. So this information is going to be included in your handouts, but essentially we want to be upfront about what our regional boundaries are, and also to mention that our other regional offices will be going to market for this activity and other similar activities within the same timeframes. And we've also given the procurement inbox emails, so there'll be local tendering opportunities coming up as well, and if you contact with these regional offices you'll be able to hear more details about those. So South East Queensland specifically, our Executive Director is Paul Black, and our main regional office is located in Cannon Hill, where we have 2 offices, one on Barrack Road and also one on Corporate Drive. And then we have our 3 district offices being in Ipswich, South Coast and Sunshine Coast. So the core services of building and asset services, well, our service offerings are based on strong relationships, both with the contractors in the marketplace and with our client agencies. And we're primarily focused on procurement, program and project management, risk management and contract management. And we've become increasingly an enabler to facilitate work, and as I mentioned, we're outsourcing upwards of 90% of our work. And some of the capabilities that we've transitioned to the industry that we previously provided in-house is the majority of our construction activities, most maintenance services, facilities management, horticulture and professional design services. So the industry opportunities in 2016 to 17, well, we first and foremost have our hard facilities management and soft facilities management, and that's going to cover 7 categories for hard FM and 2 for soft, and I'll go through those in a little bit more detail soon. We also have our statewide housing vacant maintenance standing off arrangement call, which is going to market either later this month in September or early next month in October. And that's going to cover categories including plumbing, glazing, locksmithing, mowing, yard maintenance, painting, pest control, cleaning, and carpentry and electrical, and finally builder, which would incorporate all those activities. We also have ongoing project and program specific opportunities which will be advertised through the Q tender system and actually tendered through BAS tender. And the reason why we undertake the tendering through BAS tender is it's essentially going to simplify the process in terms of releasing documentation and also in terms of receiving the offers from you in the marketplace over what the Q tender system did. However, we still will be using Q tenders, but it's purely for us as an advertisement tool to make sure that we get as much publicity for our tenders as possible. We've also got ongoing low to medium value works through local quoting and tendering opportunities. So these will be handled at the district level, and if you, on your handouts, those email addresses that I showed before, if you essentially liaise with the teams in those areas, they'll be able to provide more information about those. So with hard facilities management, when we talk about that, we're referring to heating, ventilation and air conditioning, electrical, fire, fixed equipment, transport, hydraulics and sewage treatment plants. And we're looking to go to market for this activity between September to December of this year, and it'll also be advertised on Q tenders and tendered through the BAS tender system. In the soft facilities management space, we have cleaning, pest control, hygiene, waste management and horticulture services. And the upcoming release of this package will be going to market between January to April of 2016. However, in South East Queensland, we've released a package as of this morning, and that's going to cover 5 clusters. And that's for an immediate need that we have to service some client agencies before the wider package comes out. And I'll be covering that off in more detail on the next slide. So this is going to be 84 sites, which is broken down into 5 clusters, being Brisbane North, Brisbane South, 2 CBD contracts and a horticulture contract across SEQ. And it is out to market at the moment, and the indicative commencement of this activity will be December of this year. So we're looking to turn it around quite quickly. So if you do operate in the cleaning or horticulture space, I highly recommend that you go and take a look at this opportunity. In terms of service maintenance as a statewide activity, to give some context as to how much work we actually have on offer, well, Building and Asset Services currently undertakes service maintenance for hard FM at 8,471 sites throughout the state. 33,144 equipment systems are encapsulated in that, and that also covers 554,733 items of plant. And additionally, BAS undertakes soft FM at approximately 735 locations across the state. So to give some context to that in terms of South East Queensland, well, for hard FM we have 3,532 sites, 17,361 equipment systems, and 341,037 items of plant. And we're looking to essentially package this up into approximately 70 to 100 packages, which will then be released to market between September to December of this year. And in the soft FM space, in SEQ, we have 622 sites, and we're looking to package that up into approximately 25 to 50 separate packages, and that's due to market again in January to April of next year. So building and asset services, as a business, we're constantly looking for ways to innovate, to improve the process for ourselves, but most importantly for our client agencies. And as part of this, for the service maintenance tender, one of the most important implementations that we've put in is the development of a web portal. And this web portal system is essentially for the dispatching and finalising of work orders. It's important to note that as part of this tender package, you would be required, if successful, to utilise the web portal system, and there is an administrative activity that is going to be required. So on average, we're looking at about 2 minutes per activity. However, it can take up to 5 minutes. So it's important to keep that in mind when you are putting together your tender submission, because there will be an administrative cost that will be applicable. We also have compliance forms in the Form 72 for fire, for example, or the Form 9 for backflow, and these will also be incorporated into the web portal system. And as such, they would need to be finalised and attached to the work order within the web portal prior to closing. We've also made a number of improvements in the way that we do equipment updates and conditional assessment, and these are now going to be handled as a bulk activity through an Excel spreadsheet. And essentially, this is going to be really handy if you service hundreds of pieces of equipment or operate over a number of sites. As if there's going to be any changes to those sites, you'll be able to update all that information in one single Excel spreadsheet. And then we can upload that information into our system. It's essentially an overnight process, so we're going to be able to process that activity a lot quicker than we were previously. We've also, e-invoicing is also due to be implemented in October of 2015. There'll be further information to come out about this, but essentially it's going to streamline the process for payment of invoices that come through. And it's important to note that key performance indicators will be incorporated into this contract, and as such there'll be specific tolerances put around the web portal in terms of when a work order is dispatched and when it needs to be finalised, and we will have contract managers that are ensuring these KPI measures are met. Now for us, in terms of KPIs, it also covers off the likes of financial management, operations and workplace health and safety compliance. And for us as a business, KPIs, it's about identifying if there are issues occurring with the contractor or the contract, and how our contract managers can then work with you to get a better result. However, if there are ongoing issues that can't be rectified, then that may be taken into consideration, and you may then lose out on opportunities such as extensions or further work opportunities. So it's important to note that these KPIs, they need to be reviewed as part of your tender submission, and also you need to keep in mind that they are going to form part of the contract and be applicable throughout its duration. So in our invitation offer, we have a number of objectives. First and foremost being that we're seeking to establish contracts based on geographical locations to support the development of regional capability and capacity, while ensuring competitive local suppliers are afforded a full, fair and reasonable opportunity to supply to government. So if anyone was involved in the process that we went to market for last year, there was a model known as cherry picking, where contracts were based on site-by-site basis. However, we're looking to move away from that and establish sensible contracts that support small to medium-sized enterprises, and they're going to be based on geographical locations. So once the invitation offer is released, you'll see that those breakdowns of the packages, as I mentioned, 70 to 100 for hard FM we're looking at, and around 25 to 50 for soft FM, and they will be applicable to geographical locations. We're also undertaking a number of market engagement sessions. So we've done these in Brisbane Metropolitan and also at our Sunshine Coast office, and now we're here today in our South Coast office. And also our other regions will be going to market for this activity during similar timeframes, and right across the state we're undertaking these market engagement sessions. We're also looking to ultimately deliver overall value for money, and that's both for our clients and ultimately the Queensland public. As I mentioned before about the performance management framework, we've had a lot of learnings from previous contracts as well, so we're seeking to make this a much more rewarding process for contractors. So the likes of extension provisions and additional work will be provided for strong performing contractors, and vice versa. If there are ongoing issues, then you'll be less likely to receive those or not at all. We're also, as part of the invitation to offer documents, it's going to be much clearer about what our expectations would be in terms of the KPI measures. We're also seeking to establish much longer term contracts than we did previously, and this is going to be dependent between hard and soft FM and also the subcategories. But to give you an example, we're looking at the likes of 2 years, 3 years and 5 years with options to extend. And for us, it's about building those strong relationships with contractors over a long period of time. And also in your business, it's going to give you continuity to know that you can employ your staff for a period of time, and also so you can get your own supply arrangements in place. And we're of course looking to optimise customer satisfaction, because as a service delivery provider for a number of government agencies, ultimately we're here to serve our clients. We're also looking to select contractors that meet workplace health and safety and other statutory requirements with a focus on zero harm. And in building and asset services, one of our core values is ensuring a healthy and safe workforce, and we want to be engaging with contractors that also share that. And in a number of our buildings, we have these posters and other information up around the place. So we like to put it first and foremost in front of everyone that visits our buildings, that ensuring a healthy and safe workforce is extremely important to us. We're also looking to select contractors that demonstrate capability and capacity to undertake work in a professional and timely manner. So I'm going to cover off in a little bit more detail later, but essentially we have non-price and pricing components as part of this tender, and in the non-price, that's about capability and capacity. And it's really important for us that we get a clear understanding of how your business operates and how you would be able to fulfill the obligations of this contract. And there's going to be specific tolerances there in terms of, let's say for example, 200 or 250 words. And it's important to note that even if you are currently an incumbent with building and asset services, we need to know as much information about your business as possible, because our evaluation teams are going to be reviewing what's on paper, so we can do a fair apples for apples comparison between you and other people that have put in tender submissions. We're also looking to support contractors that support industry capability development through the engagement of apprentices. And we're also looking for contractors that promote social outcomes through the employment or engagement of minority groups, socially disadvantaged and or excluded individuals is also extremely important to the Queensland Government. We're also looking for contractors that comply with building and asset services requirements to implement more efficient processes and to support innovation. So for us as a business, we don't necessarily have all the right answers. And as I touched on before, in terms of some of the innovations that we've incorporated into the process, we're constantly evolving as a business, and we understand that our contractors in the marketplace provide services for a number of clients. And if there's new and better ways to do something, we want to hear about them, and we're going to have dedicated contract managers to work with the successful providers to implement some of those. And it's also going to be a KPI measure as well, so we're looking to have this go on an ongoing basis over the term of the contract. I'll provide this information in the handouts, but to give you an idea of the timeframes for this package, well, we're doing our industry briefings at the moment, and as I said, our other regions across the state are also undertaking industry briefings at the moment. We're looking to issue the invitation to offer for hard FM between September to December of 2015. Soft FM will be going to market between January to April of 2016, except for that package that I did mention earlier, which is currently out to market at the moment, and it's due to commence from December of this year in 2015. So in terms of the tender closing timeframes for the calls next year and later this year, it'll be 4 weeks from the date of tender issue. And it's important to note that when this package does go live, please take a look at it as soon as it goes out, because we want to ensure that you spend the time to put together the best possible application that you can. In terms of evaluating responses, supplier feedback, shortlisting and administration, well, for Hard FM, it's between October 2015 and June 2016. And for Soft FM, it's January 2016 to August 2016. And I understand that they look like quite lengthy timeframes, but as a business, we've learned a lot from the previous times that we've gone out to market, and we're looking to provide as much time as we possibly can to ensure that we get the best possible outcome. So we want to get all our background administration done, and we also want to provide as much time as we possibly can to the successful contractors so that you're able to gear up to meet the requirements of these contracts. The award and commencement of the new contracts for Hard FM, it'll be July 2016, and for Soft FM, it'll be September 2016. So in terms of the workbooks, we've incorporated a number of improvements over previous years. The first and foremost is that we stick to one core principle, which is all mandatory fields are highlighted in blue and they're required to be populated. So on the spreadsheets, if you see blue fields, they are required to be populated. And this will be the same principle that's applied for both the price and non-price components. And we're also going to provide handout documents after this session and also as part of the tender, which is going to be how to fill in the pricing bid sheet. The workbooks themselves, I'll run through these as an example in a minute, but to give you an idea of how they're going to be weighted, well, for pricing, it'll be 65% for low complexity and 60% for high complexity. And for non-pricing, it'll be 35% for low complexity and 40% for high complexity. And the difference between low and high complexity will be dependent on the specific subcategory, but for example, a lot of soft FM in terms of cleaning, we would consider more low complexity activity, whereas something compared to the likes of security systems, we would deem as a much more high complex activity. And we'd just like to be upfront with everyone about how we're going to be evaluating this. So both workbooks, being the non-pricing and pricing components, will be evaluated separately from our evaluation panel. And then we're going to combine these together for a final score, and then that will give us our shortlisted result. And then we'll undertake negotiations before final award. Now we're also going to have conflict of interest forms as part of this activity. And it's important to note that Building and Asset Services representatives will be required to complete this activity, and also those submitting an offer will be required to as well. So we just want to ensure that, for example, if a Building and Asset Services representative was a family member of someone that's put in a submission, we want to ensure that that person is not on the evaluation, because we want to undertake a fair and transparent process and compare apples with apples. And now I'll just run through an example of what the spreadsheet will work like. Alright, so this is an example of the pricing workbook. And on the front page you'll see that there's a number of instructions and information, and we've stuck to specific colour coding down here. And as I mentioned, the core principle to keep in mind is that the blue fields are going to be mandatory and do need to be populated. There's also going to be more specific pricing instructions, because we want to clearly articulate to everyone in the marketplace and ensure that there's no ambiguity as to when we talk about specific terminology, what that actually means. There's then going to be a pricing schedule. So as an example, this is looking at some Hard FM, and there'll be system information. So it's going to stick to the colour coding, and it'll specifically break down who is the customer, the service address, and the specific information as to the equipment to be serviced. There'll then be a pricing schedule here. So this particular service, for instance, requires a 6 monthly price, a yearly price, and a 5 yearly price. So if I put in here, for example, that it's going to be $50 for a 6 monthly price, $125 for yearly, and it's also going to then be $200 for a 5 yearly price, you'll notice that it then populates over here to give a total price of $375. So you can clearly see what are the fields that are being calculated together and where it adds up. Now, in terms of improvements over the previous process as well, Our previous tenders had several hundred specification documents, and it was incredibly difficult for people in the marketplace to be able to sort through and identify what the specific specification was relevant to that activity. And now in the actual pricing schedule, we've provided a number of hyperlinks, and essentially when the tender goes live, you'll be able to click on these hyperlinks and it will load up the specification document relevant to that activity. So it's just going to make it that much simpler process. This activity is also going to require some breakdown maintenance components, as it's hard FM, and it's going to essentially stick to the same principle, which is blue fields need to be populated. Now, in terms of the non-pricing workbook, there's going to then again be an instructions tab with information. The same core principle applies, of blue fields are mandatory. There'll be some general information that's required from your business as to essentially who you are, your ABN, ACN, where you're located and the like. We're also going to just want some general information about the number of employees that your business has and where you're located. As I mentioned before, there'll be a conflict of interest form, so we want to ensure that the people that are evaluating are going to be independent from the process of your business. There's also then going to be specific non-price components, and this is going to cover the likes of relevant experience, technical experience, and referees. I would note these are just examples at the moment, so when the actual tender goes live, some of the questions may be slightly different, but this is just to give you some forward advice on what it would look like. The other really interesting feature that we've put into it is there's going to be a submission checklist at the end. So with all those fields that are required to be populated, if at the end the spreadsheet is still showing that it's not complete, that essentially means that one of the fields was not populated correctly. And so it's a nice little check for you in the marketplace to ensure that before you submit your offer, it's actually got all the required information that we need. Before I go into some workplace health and safety information, I just wanted to quickly run through some additional information and resources that we're going to be including in the handouts. So it's important to note, if you're not currently registered with Building and Asset Services, you are required to be registered with us before we can enter into a contract with you. And as part of that process, we have overarching terms and conditions, being the Working with Building and Asset Services document. So you need to review that information, and also if you follow this hyperlink or contact our registrations team, they'll be able to assist in that process. If you're also already registered with us, you are required to update your details periodically. So we need to ensure that all licenses and insurance details are up to date. And if there are any changes in terms of contacts, please update that information as well, so we're able to be contacting with the right people. We also prefer for generic inboxes to be provided in case there are people that enter and exit your business, that everyone is able to essentially receive that information that we send out or communicate with you. The Q Tenders website, Building and Asset Services will be using this for public advertisements, so we've provided that information as well. And it's also important to note that a number of government agencies also use this service. So it's a good way to find out about other opportunities in the market. And the BASI tender system is essentially where we will be tendering this specific activity, and there'll be information on the site on the Q tender listing about this process and the direct link to the tender. We've also got tender support at the moment, being Brooke Patterson and Michael Hart from my team. And we've also got an email address at the moment, but when the actual tender goes live, there'll be a phone number provided as well. So if you do have any questions throughout the process, we encourage you to call and let us know and see how we can help.